Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. All right. Are we in the, has anyone entered? Are we there?
We're there. We're ready to go.
All right. Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's Lunch and Learn. I drink coffee for my lunch. We are excited to talk to you about the overall program, the SBIR, the SBDC, and Encountering Innovation. We know some of you are watching this because you've told me you can't get to this week's Lunch and Learn. So we know some of you are watching this and not being able to ask questions. What I'm going to encourage you to do as you go through this, if some of the questions are asked and answered and you're covered, great. But if not, write your question down as we go, because some of you are going to be triggered with questions along the way. And then later you're going to forget your question and then you won't be able to ask us because you're thinking, well, they're not there anyway. So go ahead and write your question down as you go. And those of you that are live, if you want to write your question down while someone's talking, that's fine. But please let us know. Point of clarification, how are we doing questions? Dacia, are they typing them in or do they raise their hand? How are we getting to know if someone has a question?
Yes, they can use the chat or the Q&A button.
Great.
Is somebody monitoring those questions?
I will, Bill.
Okay, so you can just feel free to step in and interrupt anytime you think that a question is appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and I want to welcome Bijo. We got the name wrong. It's Bijo Mathew with one T, but I see Bijo has joined us on the panel as well. Bijo, as you're seeing this from your perspective, Bill will be doing most of the talking today. So as you see this, since we haven't talked to you ahead of time, we welcome you to speak up, especially from your experience working with SBIR and Encountering Innovation. Bijo is the director for the tech program in Texas. He's in San Antonio at the University of Texas SA, San Antonio SBDC program down there. So what we want to do is remind everyone this is the second in a series of SBIR trainings and Encountering Innovation revealing. So what we're trying to do is help you understand that the Kansas SBDC Tech Innovation Center is hosting the Encountering Innovation Conference, but that's all we're doing is hosting it. I mean, we're working, but we're reaching out to our fellow state tech directors in the other states. So Bijo here this week, we've got Barbara Bonner in Oklahoma, we've got Jamie in Colorado, Josh in Nebraska, Gary and his team in South Dakota. We've reached out to North Dakota, Iowa, Brett, and Missouri and Arkansas. So we reach out to the SBDCs nearest us. We have innovators from 10 or 11, 12 different states every year. So that's more states than I just mentioned. But letting you understand that as we go forward, the conference is a one-time event at this point per year, this being the fourth year. But the SBDC program and programs in each state are ongoing. So this is not a chance for you to pitch one time and then go home. And if you hit it out of the ballpark, great. And if you didn't, oh, it's too bad. That's not what this is. This is the beginning of a process that we hope to help you commercialize your innovation. So this week is what we just showed you a while ago. How do we call it? IP protection differences between the SBDC, SBIR, and Encountering Innovation. What we've done is I've asked Bill Carey, who actually was one of our clients who came to me and started working with us several years ago. As we started moving forward in the tech innovation program and to commercialize, I reached out to Bill and said, Bill, you've got such experience with SBIR and STTR. Would you be really willing to talk to in a seminar to some of our clients and give them some of your expertise. He did that. We went from that to where he's now working with us as the science advisor and the grant specialist with SBIR and STTR. He has his own small business, has experience, and won multiple SBIR and STTR awards. And then he has very good experience now. We have worked with our own Encountering Innovation conferences the last 3 years. I've gone to New York. We've both gone to Huntsville at their program. And then we're this week just finished working with NASA and Space Force. And Bill has more experience now after working with 50 clients in that program, which was used our intake, but completely so I really would so with that, I'm going to encourage Bill to take Bill. I'll flip the slides as you talk.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. We're going to be just comparing here some different things. What are some of the differences and similarities between these different groups that Alan mentioned? So we're going to talk about the SBDC first. One of the things that I try and ensure people right away is that when you sign up as a client, you are signing also a non-disclosure with us, so we can talk at a level that we can actually help you at. Even for myself with a technical background, I have actually even helped clients with some technical issues over the years too. So we are bound by that agreement. And actually that's the federal agreement. So it has teeth. We need to be careful. We're not going to be spreading your technology and say, hey, wow, you should go check out what they're doing. I think you should just try and do that too. We may talk to both parties and saying, hey, there's a company I know that you really should have a conversation with. See if you have some synergistic things, that we get permission from both of you in order to be able to share your information with the other one, and usually like in the form of, say, at least an email, and we'll introduce you to, and then we're not promising anything through that, but we just sense that there's an opportunity for collaboration. And so next slide. So now let's talk about the SBIR program. What are they looking for, and how does that change a little bit versus what you're doing with SBDC? Well, first of all, they're looking for a dual use technology. Many times they want dual use being for their particular organization, but also for the greater good. They're looking for something that can be commercially viable to other customers other than just themselves. But they're really looking for something that's really innovative, not just evolutionary, not just small changes. Hey, we changed the color of this and put a new node on it, and suddenly this is an incredible thing. They're looking for things that are real game changers, things that have, possibilities of making a real difference in how something gets done, whether that's in the medical field or the military field or the health field, like NIH or various things in computers, something that's truly creative. It's not just, I also do this and I think I can do it a couple of dollars cheaper than somebody else. At that point, it's really more of a commodity, and that's more of a GSA schedule. If you think you can produce something at a cheaper rate and make good money on it, then you should get on GSA schedules and sell them through that. That's a different conversation, and probably for, to get with your SBDC advisor or connect with somebody from PTAC or something. They're not really looking for R&D just to fund basic research, at least not normally. And I say that there's always nuances, but in general, what they're looking for, something that's going to be a product, it's going to become a service, it's going to become useful in the next number of years down the road. So if you have something where you just really want to do basic research and you have no intention of really taking it into a product, they're not normally very interested in that kind of a thing. yeah, if you're interested in building it up to some level and licensing it out, you know, that could be interesting too, but they're not interested in just dead end projects. Next slide.
Bill, may I jump in for a second?
Sure.
And is that fine? Is that how you'd like to do it, or I can just wait till the end?
No, jump right on in.
Okay, so what I wanted to add, and I agree with everything Bill is saying, is to kind of give you some additional depth on the research and development part. So if you are working on research that is needed as part of your commercialization activity, so then that is perfectly acceptable, even though that may fall under what would be considered type basic research. So the distinguishing part is when you put together research that is for the sake of just knowledge. So I'm going to do this because I think it's great for mankind and would lead to a research paper, then it would not qualify. But if it is towards moving your product, so you need research that is going to substantiate your core competitive advantage on your technology, then by all means work on it. In fact, that's what they would like to see. So just wanted to make sure that folks listening in can understand that there is research involved that would fall under basic, but it's directed towards a product or service development. So thank you.
Right. And so really the question is the end goal. Is this really pushing toward a product or something that relates to something you're doing or want to do? Or is this something that just, you know, something down the road, maybe somebody can find useful, but I'd like to work on it. Next slide. So now here, let's talk about what the DoD Tech Scouts are looking for. And the reason I say the Tech Scouts is because the Encountering Innovation Conference is really focused on Department of Defense and other government Tech Scouts engagement. We've had anywhere from DoD, Homeland Security, FBI. We've had some NIST people there. There's been a lot of them. And then there's probably people that I know there are people that get our documents from some of the Tech Scouts that we wouldn't even know, some of the other organizations too. So this is a pretty wide focus. But in general, I'm going to be talking a lot toward the DoD especially. They're very much focused on the warfighter. How can you make somebody fight better, last longer, come home safely, and without loss of life and limb? It's not so much focused on your team. Now, that doesn't mean they don't care about your team, but the emphasis is on what they need, not what you need. So how does what you are doing fit what they need? And I would say from an IP standpoint, it's very important to get this point. It is more about what does it do than how does it do it. So, you know, I can say I have this software program that will ultimately speed up your operations doing this by 20%. Great, that could be very useful to me. Now, if you want to get down into the weeds and start talking about flow charts and why it's better and stuff, they're not so interested in that, or maybe from a curiosity standpoint, but in general, they'll assume that you have a general idea of how to do what you think you can do. But the question is it helpful to the warfighter? And if it's not, then it's not so much of an emphasis for them. So they're not focused on the technology and what it will do, not so much on your company. Company history is not super important to them. Maybe some of the credentials of some of the people in your company because it relates to how qualified your technology is. But in general, that's their focus. So, and I would just emphasize too, for those that don't consider themselves to be super good in terms of public speaking, this is not focused on how well you pitch or how well you get up there and really wow the world with the exact right hand motions and all of that. what this is, it's really just focused on the technology, communicate the technology, what it does, how does it help the warfighter, and then let them make the determination who they should pass it on to. And if you think of that, the DoD Tech Scouts really as like a gold prospector, digging through a pile of technology, sifting through it, looking for the nuggets. And when they find something that is a nugget, or they suspect is a nugget, or something that has value in that pile, then they will take that and they will hand it off to somebody else that's going to process it and see how well that nugget fits in with what they're trying to collect and what they're trying to do. So their job is literally to be a human filter to find the technology and pair you up with somebody else. So from that standpoint, just keep in mind, they're not your customer, but they may know your customer. So it's very important that, you know, you don't just come in there just saying, hey, I want you to write a check for me to do this today, because they can't. But if you go in there and say, who might be able to help me with this project here? I need money. Maybe I need help getting certifications or other things like that. Who should I talk to? And then it's a collaborative effort. Next slide, Alan. The SBIR, the general trends, couple of things. The DoD tends to be focused on later TRL, technology readiness level. And they're focused on warfighter solutions. They are also emphasizing commercial applications, but their focus isn't for you to just have their focus isn't for you to have a commercial product. It's for them to get done what they need to do. So just keeping that in mind. Now, the other organizations in general, they're looking for new and innovative. Sometimes they're more open probably to earlier TRL. I'm just talking in generalities here. They're looking for dual use for their organization as well as for others in the commercial world. Some, excuse me, like, you know, DARPA, like DOE, NIH, NSF, and some of those, they don't have a particular need they're trying to solve, but they are trying to solve a societal need. So their only focus is really, is this not only commercial, but is it actually solve a need that, more than just making you money? Does this solve a need that is really helpful to society or to people in general? Are you working on something that increases the health of the community, or, you know, solves a water problem, or, you know, some of those kinds of things, or is research that leads to a new cure for something, or that kind of thing? They don't necessarily have a specific thing they're looking for, but they're looking for general wins for society. Next slide. So how do you come to SBIR with your technology and say, is this a fit or not? So let's kind of just look under the hood. Think of pulling up the hood on your car and say, okay, what's this thing got under here? You know, is the technology you're working on actually innovative? Is it creative? Does it do some things that better than others, better than your competitors? Does it stand out that way? So if you were, just for instance, you were talking to the military and you printed t-shirts and you said, hey, I think you should buy my t-shirts because I can sell them cheaper, and I have a cool logo on it that soldiers fight better when they have a cool logo on their shirt. So I think you should buy them from me. That's not really innovative. If you had a new type of material, that maybe a cloth that was better at breathing and getting moisture away from your skin, that you could actually have more endurance because of a t-shirt made out of your material, that is significant. They're both talking about t-shirts, but they're talking about innovation versus just sales. So, and then the next thing is, what would it take to actually achieve that? What kind of work plan? what kind of partners, and how do you build out not just a team, but a credible team, and a credible team on paper. So you may actually have all the ability to do something in-house, but you can't really prove it. Maybe you need to bring on a partner that has the credentials or the track record that they can show, hey, I'm ready to do this part of it. And then you can work together to solve the problem. From an IT perspective, SBIR actually requires more, I don't say total reveal, but more of a revealing of things that tend to look more like IP. You have to share a little bit more under the hood to give them an idea that you actually know what you're talking about, because it isn't proven, it isn't necessarily done. But they also give you a means that they have you mark things proprietary. They really want you to protect your ideas. They don't want your IP rights. And honestly, the military doesn't build anything. I mean, the government in general doesn't build things. They buy things. They buy things from companies. So one of the really great features about SBIR, and this is a whole topic in itself, and that's the sole source rights that you get with that. And I would add, and then Bijo, if you can correct me here if you think I'm stretching it, but that from what my understanding is, the sole source rights go with the technology, not with necessarily just with the company. So if you were to say you develop this technology under an SBIR and it has the smell of SBIR on it attached to it, you take that technology and you sell the rights to that technology to a big company or defense contractor or producer. The sole source rights goes with that technology. So they don't have to be a small company anymore to be able to have the sole source rights. That's a big deal from a marketing standpoint, because if the government wants to buy it, they just eliminated 6 months to potentially 1 year of monkeying around, sending it out for bids, getting multiple bids, evaluating it, waiting for bids to come in, all of that. It's a lot easier for them to buy that technology. So it's a big deal for you, whether you want to produce it or to sell the technology to somebody else that wants to produce it. And I think one of his last points is, this is actually interesting. Yeah?
May I jump in on that piece just for additional part?
Sure.
Can you hear me, or I can move to the phone connection that I have with?
Oh, I can hear you. It's
Is
fine.
this fine, Alan?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's continue with me on the web this way. So what I wanted to add is, when you added, it stays with the technology. Yes, in the sense that I just want to make sure that people understood it. The technology continues to belong to you, the company.
Right.
What it means is that you can now, it gives you a more stronger position to negotiate with a larger prime.
Mm-hmm.
But keep in mind that in many cases, if they so choose, if you don't negotiate in good faith and you don't want to move to executing a deal, this is one of those spaces where the DoD could march in and take over your IP.
Mm-hmm.
So you want people to, so I want you all to remember that is, to my recollection, there may have been one situation in all of the SBIR history where this may have happened. So this goes something like this. You've got a technology, the DoD has invested in you developing it. They recognize that it belongs to you, but they also recognize that they made that investment. So they can also come to you from the point of view is they don't see you as a potential manufacturer because you just don't have the right kind of infrastructure or the team to go into manufacturing. So they can put you in front of a larger manufacturer, maybe one or two, and say, can you both strike a deal? And then they step out of the room. So it's for y'all to come to a term that works. Because so some people have asked me, well, I want to go into production myself. Would that not work? The question is, if you don't have a production scheme in place already, prior to the negotiation, it's highly unlikely, and I use the word unlikely here, that they will be willing to wait for you to establish a manufacturing facility so that you could manufacture the product. So, so just keep that in mind as you negotiate. Now, remember that it does put you in a very favorable position with a larger prime. And sometimes I've been in meetings where some of the larger companies may not understand the sole source rights. So letting them know that they have this and giving them an opportunity to now bid on sole source contracts provides them tremendous negotiation strength, if you may. So, and I'll stop there. Thank you.
Very good point. And I think that there are a very, very limited number of cases where the government does consider, hey, we paid the money to develop this and we thought you were moving forward and you're not, you don't want to. Like, what if company went through phase 1 and phase 2 and then they said, hey, we'd really like to buy 1,000 of these. And then they said, no, not really. We don't really want to do that. We just want to write more SBIRs. In a case like that, the government would kind of be forced into a corner where we really need these and we thought you were going to provide it and you can't. Or as in, as in Bijo was saying, you really don't have the capability they think you have. They're going to try and really help you move forward in that. But this fourth point, I was actually told this by the technology advisor to a congressman at the U.S. level. He said Congress really frowns on big business or government stomping on small business. And he said, if any entity in the government or like that actually starts getting a reputation for abusing small businesses, it is a big deal with Congress and they get in trouble over that. So in general, they frown on trying to take advantage of small businesses. If at all possible, they avoid that. So next down, I'm not saying it can't happen, but it's more rare than what I think you might think.
So Bill, I'm going to take the question and we got a question that I was hoping you'd see. I'm not sure that I agree with what they're saying. Maybe it's not a question, it's a comment, but I do want to bring up the difference, but for just a moment, because of the IP, the difference between SBIR and STTR. The comment says DoD does not build products they buy, but they do research and have a huge patent farm, STTR. The STTR is not owned by DoD. That's not what that is. It's, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and clarify it right quick. Would you speak to the difference between and not elaborate, but just from an IP perspective, the difference between SBIR and STTR? And if you don't want to, I'll do it. I'll do it if you don't want to.
I don't think there's a lot of difference between them per se. STTR involves, normally it involves research institutions of various levels, typically universities or sometimes government labs that help. But, and they tend to be a little bit more leaning toward the basic research side or toward the earlier technology readiness levels, let's say. So in general, they're probably early in the early stages. I would venture to say they also develop their own share of intellectual property that also goes with either the small business or the university. So there's all kinds of things that are out there within those entities that can be licensed, and they can, and those things would still fall under sole source if they have the SBIR, STTR attached to them.
So we learned,
Alan, on that one.
Okay.
One important distinction that I think people need to keep in mind is one, that the STTR program is substantially smaller than the SBIR program. So not all federal agencies have it in the first place. The DoD does have it.
Right.
The second component is that you don't have to have a university partner for an SBIR program, but you are required to have a university or a federal partner for an STTR. So it's a requirement. Now, what that usually, it was designed to be a technology transfer. That's what the TNT stands in STTR for. It was supposed to be a mechanism to transfer technology from a university or an entity to the business and then onto the market. So what happens there on the IP side is typically the IP that is being transferred is owned by the university. So the business is the commercialization instrument to take that technology and find a place for it in the market. So, and yes, they may add additional IP on top of the basic IP that they received from the university, and that may be negotiated between the university and the entity, but it typically involves IP that was generated from a university and continues to be owned by the university. It's just licensed by the business.
Well, I would say in our company, we've done a lot of work in both SBIR and STTR, and almost every time I'd say that's probably generally true. In our case, we would take a piece of the project that we needed to hire a part of expertise in, typically something that it was a key piece but didn't involve the intellectual property, like maybe a power supply that was very unique for super high voltage, and we knew a university that was really good at developing that. We could hire them doing the STTR, using an STTR to do that part, but then the actual intellectual property secret sauce of what we were building was actually within the company. So it could be either place, but I would say typically it probably does reside within the university, and they really like to see things that are spin-offs out of a university to a company.
So I want to jump in for a second. So a couple of things. What we're trying to do, for those of you that are listening, either live or those of you that are hearing this, part of today's conversation is to attract those of you that are sitting on the fence to step up and participate, but not risking your IP. We don't want you to lose your business for the sake of us being able to help you commercialize. That's not our intent. Our intent, though, is to help you understand the difference of IP protection and how to focus on this. And second of all, what those opportunities look like and how you approach them. So a very key component to what Bijo said a while ago that we learned this week, I learned with the NASA Space Force. First of all, when you go STTR, so the person that brought this up, STTR, your DoD doesn't own, government does not own your patent in any fashion. Your nonprofit, your laboratory, your university, or whoever that is forced, you must have 30% or more participation in your budget with STTR. As Bijo mentioned a while ago, that it is a requirement. You must clarify your IP ownership in order to get an STTR. It has to be clarified. There is no ambiguity in that regard. Second of all, the competition in STTR, it is a smaller budget. It's a smaller pie. It's a much smaller pie. But this week, one example they gave us, 60% of those that applied for this one segment of STTR won. 60% of the applicants versus less than 10% of the SBIR. So if you've got early TRL and either you're bringing in someone because they have it, that being your nonprofit, laboratory, university, whoever, if you can make it fit STTR wise, you've got less competition right now, and so that means you got a better chance of winning. If you can identify and clarify your IP, then it may be a great way to go. So for those that are thinking STTR, that the DoD owns it, that's not the case. So just wanting to clarify that. So I'll pitch it back to Bill, to you, or Bijo, if you guys have anything. I know we learned some stuff this week that I thought was pretty cool.
So if I may add to that, you're absolutely right, Alan. And now having in my previous life, received both SBIRs and STTRs and commercialized those technologies. What I'll tell you is that STTRs do have a higher chance of getting approved, and they also have more project time. So you have more time to complete your project. So it could be 6 months for an SBIR versus, and you could versus 1 year for an STTR. So you have more time, but a component that small businesses need to keep in mind is, this is just general in a sense, is negotiations with universities on IP and IP usage and access to facilities can be extremely challenging. So it's not something that you should just tread in lightly on. It has for many businesses, it has been a deal breaker. So what I would suggest to you all is, when you can make it work, it's great, but when you can't, it's a monster. So you do want to build those relationships with the university early to kind of test the waters and see whether this is a path you want to take for your company, because the engagement lasts a long time after the SBIR is over. So get a sense of who your partner is, and you want to view these things very seriously. It's almost like taking on a business partner, because the university will continue to own the IP, and typical negotiations on university IP and additional IP that you bring to the table as part of your engagement or on an STTR will also be viewed as IP linked to the original IP. So while that's negotiable, it's typically viewed as shared IP. So so keep that in mind too. So there are aspects on the business contracting negotiation IP issues that you need to keep in mind when pursuing an STTR.
Right. And I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on STTR, but you bring up a really good point, Bijo. And the reason I say that, in virtually every case where we have worked with the university, it is because I have had a prior relationship with them, or somebody in that university that recommended me to that particular group. I've met them at conferences, other places, been to their labs and other things. So you've already been in communication with them, and you see what they can do, and you when you look at this,
it's only bad from Bill's side, or is it just me?
So you have an idea. You have an idea that this group would be really good to work with, and you can call them up and say, hey, hey, George, would you consider working on an STTR with me? And now, we'll divide out some of the different parts of it here, and I really need this comm system, or I need this part done. But you're calling them up out of a relationship, and you need to start that process early. If you 3 weeks before you're going to submit an SBIR, you suddenly go, wow, I need XYZ university to help me on this, and you walk in and start saying, wow, would you be interested in SBIR? And they say, who are you now? And what does your company do? It's too late. So you need to start that process very early in building those relationships. Next slide, Alan. Difference between encountering innovation and actually Tech Scouts and the SBIR. The SBIR is really looking for new and innovative. They want to push the envelope, typically thinking commercial, or in DoD, they're thinking new and innovative, and they're thinking their own needs plus commercial. But the DoD Tech Scouts, they're not really focused I should say not interested, but they're not focused on your team. It's all about what does it accomplish? How does it benefit the DoD? Not so much about societal impact. The societal impact is protecting society with the DoD. So that is their societal impact. So that's the major differences that I would point out. Next slide. Okay. You want to take this one, Alan?
So at this point, what I'd like to do is, before we remind you about the process and applying with encountering innovation, I want to see if we can open up for questions and answers. So I'll and you're right, Bill. We changed this. We were in a hurry earlier, and apparently I did not alter that slide. So I will alter it. We don't want you to think that they're not interested in your team. What we're trying to point out is, as you're taking your IP forward and you're looking at your innovation and you're going, should I pitch? Should I reveal to the DoD Tech Scouts? What will they do with this? What we're trying to help you understand is the differences in SBIR and Tech Scouts with your IP. They're not, SBIR is much more focused on your team. DoD Tech Scouts are not focused. They're interested. You go up there looking like an imbecile and you don't know what you're doing and you bumble all over everything. They're humans. You show them no respect. They're humans. They're real people. They get just as offended as you or I would. So there is a difference there. They're just not focused on you. And so, yeah, you're right. I didn't point that out.
Yeah. And I would say too, I mean, and the Tech Scouts they're not focused on stealing your IP. They're interested in you taking it forward so they can use it in the ways that they need. So, but yeah. I would just add one of the caveats to this is these Tech Scouts, I know specifically of some of those in the DoD that are more open in sharing with us about where they socialize, where they take your information to, who they take it to. They know people in places that are amazing, and when they introduce you to somebody, it's not at the front office level who's the person whose job it is to screen emails and to screen phone calls and to get rid of all the annoying ones for their boss. You're talking to somebody that's behind that firewall. In one case this last week, I talked to one of the Tech Scouts and he said, I did not know this technology existed. I already called 3 different places. He called somebody toward the head leadership of NASA. He called the Secretary of Defense's office, and he called one other place. It was like, if I was to call any of those places, cold call, I would get absolutely nowhere. I would be stopped at the front end firewall by a secretary saying, I'm sorry, he's busy right now. Can he get back with you maybe like next year or the year after? So that's the kind of level of places they can take you if it works out.
One of the questions I've got here that I'm looking at is it fair to say SBIR has money and Tech Scouts can blank? I think the point here once again, we're trying to focus on the differences from an IP perspective, but the question is, from a funding perspective, the way we've approached this is the Department of Defense has needs that they need to resolve. What we've got to do is figure out how to get your idea to a commercialized product that they want. That means you've got to be innovative. You've also got to be flexible, because it's rare that what you have exactly the way you propose it is what they want. Instead, what happens is you've presented something, you've said, I can solve this, and then they come back to you and say, can you make it bigger? Can you make it smaller? Can you make it purple? Can you alter it? If you can, then we've got IP issues, you've got innovation, all kinds of things going forward as far as that perspective. But the fact is, the DoD have to take that, the DoD Tech Scout has to take your innovation to someone that can purchase it. Program executive officer, program manager, someone that's in charge of a specific program. What happens in both cases is you've got innovation, whether it's SBIR that's looking to help fund an innovation, or DoD needs a solution to something. There are multiple programs, OTAs, RIF in the past. It sounds like RIF may be coming back. So there's different, we can do acronym soup all day. SBIR and STTR is one of those programs of which DoD has about half of that money. The reason why, from last week we talked to you about the reason why we focus on DoD to begin with is because they've got about $85 billion that they spend every year. And it's not, size of company is not an issue with that 85 billion. In the SBIR program, they have about half of the 3.5 billion DoD does, and it is focused on small business. So you have the right to compete in the SBIR arena and not worry about big business. When you come over to the Encountering Innovation Conference, you show up and you're now talking to the DoD Tech Scouts that quite honestly prefer to see small business show up. So all of a sudden you're competing in that 85 billion at the beginning. So to the point of the difference between SBIR and DoD, the Tech Scouts are going to refer you to someone else. If you're coming to Encountering Innovation and you're hoping that, first of all, I don't lose my IP, what the focus of today is, you should not lose your IP. Why? Because you're not talking about your IP. You're talking about what your IP accomplishes for the DoD. If you go to SBIR in order to pull your development through to the point that you can sell to the DoD, then you are going to reveal more of your IP to the SBIR program, because that's the way they focus, that's the way they work. Okay, so the DoD's not going to cut you a check. The DoD Tech Scout will not cut you a check on Friday of Encountering Innovation. That doesn't happen that way. But we've had clients that have come to the conference, have met their DoD Tech Scout, and just what Bill referred to a while ago. And then early next week, they're getting phone calls and they are moving forward. We've had quotes of, this conference was worth $1 million in marketing. We already know because we've been doing this for a while. We've had quotes of 1 million to 10 million. I'm not sure 10 million is accurate, but this can give you access in a way that Bill said that he can't get. And he's got quite a bit of success behind him in SBIR and STTR. But there are certain people that can give you that access. SBIR is a funding opportunity within innovation that might get you through with DoD. I hope that helps understand the difference there.
And if I may add, and this is Bijo here, so I agree with everything Alan said, but just add to that is this additional component that I think listeners need to pay attention to about attending this event, is that you get an opportunity to receive feedback. And if you're designing a new product or a new service, you know how powerful that can be. Is you are getting an opportunity to receive very specified feedback from potential end users or people who know the end users of that technology. So, and it goes a long way in directing the direction of research. So I'll give you an example of a client from our pool that came in for the event. It led to a meeting with the Tech Scout. So I'm going to put together a conversation of what happens at the Encountering event and all the follow-on conversations that happen beyond that particular event. So as a result of the engagement right there that day, we went into the follow-on room afterwards where we were having a private discussion with the Tech Scout. It was revealed that they wanted to see this particular material on a new kind of substrate. It was a kind of coating. And they asked very specific questions because it was confidential. And then that led the team to kind of develop research separately on their own money to kind of develop the product towards that end. So it provided strategic insight for the company to reassess how they want to allocate resources within. And when you're a small company, that can make the difference between life and death for that company. Because by doing that, they are now closer to what the DoD needs for that product to be. So, in my opinion, one of the biggest advantages is you get really powerful feedback that you can utilize for that space. And then you can also utilize those feedback to kind of develop a much stronger SBIR and STTR. And for clients that are pursuing the AFWork side of the house, and we have those, are, they also provide an avenue to connect to folks inside DoD for that phase 2 MOU that's required for you to receive a phase 2 under the AFWEX contract. So, so there's all these additional aspects that are collateral and that could help you on your SBIR side of the house and design your product towards end use that happen at the encountering innovation. I'll stop there.
So Bijo, thank you so much. That actually brought up, I think, another IP point that we missed, and that is, and you gave me goosebumps. We've got clients that have pitched at DoD, and then because the DoD Tech Scouts are so interested, they pulled them. They socialized, as we call it. They socialized them, but then a test was developed and approved. The test would have cost the client, had the client done it on their own, the test would have been $10 million for them to pull off. Instead, the DoD paid for the test, and it cost the DoD between $1 and $2 million. So you've got step. You don't just get to pitch and boom, you've got a test. But it brought them into that avenue for conversations and meetings to the point where a test happened that the client would have never pulled off on their own, or at least not within their small business. So excellent point. And then second of all, because of doing that, you're protecting your IP in a way that you might not have had you done the test in a public venue. You hope you would. So anyway, I think that was a very good point. Thank you, Bijo. Bill, I'm back to you. Or
Sure,
do we
Alan,
have
one
more
more
questions?
point
Yep.
that I just want the folks who are listening to make sure you understand the difference from an IP point of view that pertains to your business. So while from an IP point of view, it's important to remember that presenting your content in the poster session would be considered as exposure in a public setting. So that would invalidate your IP. So if you're invalidate a patent as you would have exposed it to a public environment. So keep that in mind. So at a minimum, I would advise clients to have a provisional patent in place before having a conversation, and it doesn't cost that much, but have a provisional patent in place before you attend the event. And if you have a full patent, you're in a much better position to go onto the poster side of the house. It's also okay to kind of, and Alan and Bill jump on this component here. It's okay to leave things proprietary and sort of masked on the poster side of the event. Is my thinking. So
yes, and very much so. You don't need to tell people, or even if somebody is talking to you at the poster event and they start asking questions that you think are pushing the realm of intellectual property, just say that's a conversation that I don't want to have without a non-disclosure with you.
So to what Bijo just said and what Bill's been doing, let us help you. We've got 2 or 3 minutes left, so I want to make sure you get this. We are helping you automate your documents. So when you apply, you're going to get your pitch. You're going to get your quad chart and your information paper. After you edit those, then you're going to get your pitch deck and your poster board. In your poster board, it's not only okay, it's actually encouraged. We want you to understand that so Bijo, great point. From an IP perspective, when you pitch to the DoD Tech Scouts, it's private. It's closed off. It is not a public event. When you pitch your poster board or you represent your poster board, that is a public disclosure. So that's a very good point. And so we want you to understand that. So it's not that we don't, it's not just okay, it's actually encouraged. You don't reveal. This is about selling the sizzle, not how you grew that cow, to raise that cow in order to cut that steak in a way that it gave them the flavor they wanted. This is about selling the sizzle. So you're about giving them the benefit, and then if they're interested, then you have that private conversation later. Good point.
Yeah.
Do we have more questions? Oh, somebody says you have 1 year to file a patent after disclosure, but Bijo is right as far as talking about if you reveal, I guess, in poster. The thing that I think you need to understand is that we do help you understand the difference between the DoD Tech Scout private and the poster board being public. This year, because we're going virtual, we are looking to tie when you apply, you answer a question called, give us your public bluff, your public statement, your
Bottom line up front.
Yeah, your bottom line up front. I don't remember the exact number of words, but it's a paragraph, a short paragraph. It's not a executive summary. But we're looking to tie your bluff to your poster board for the event. So where people can look at the bluffs within the room, if you will, and then click on it and they can see your poster board. That will be per client. Each client will tell us your public bluff is part of your application. It's encouraged, and it's part of how we attract our tech scouts and hopefully investors and other things. But your poster board is a public document within a concealed group of people or a limited group of people at the conference. Because we're going virtual this year, that could be a lot bigger. We're finding a lot more people attending these virtual conferences could be hopefully a lot more successful. It's pretty exciting, but it's your poster board. So in that regard, you need to talk to your attorney or get counsel as to what you should reveal. Once again, I highly encourage you sell the benefit and then you explain later, much later, when you're getting to the science review, up whichever avenue you're going, that's when someone needs to understand enough to see if you're real. You don't need to be explaining how something is at your poster board level.
Yep.
And one last comment, Alan, and to the group, I just want you all to know we are not attorneys here. Right. And please don't construe anything we are offering as legal advice. We are giving you our private opinions of what we think and what we believe from our own experience, but please make the decision in consultation with your attorney who's legally qualified to give you these answers.
Right.
That's a great point, Bijo. In fact, as we were studying going through this, I read a Forbes list today, and the first one on there about protecting your IP was do not file a patent. When you file a patent, you give up your recipe for what it is you're filing a patent for. And so there are companies that will not file a patent for that reason, but then they have to protect it some other way because reverse engineering, so forth and so on. So there's a variety of ways to approach this. The main thing we want to help our clients understand is we encourage you to get involved. So number one, our first step is working with the SBDC. We're going to hold your information confidential. If we share anything, we have to get your permission. If you read through the, what do we call it? The statement of understanding, we tell you we're going to reveal certain things that once we have it agreed upon, mutually agreed upon, the words we use between Bill, our science advisor, your tech coach, and you, once your documents are in such a way that they're ready to go, then we reveal those to DoD Tech Scouts. But as we point out, what they're looking for is the accomplishment. What will it accomplish, and why is that important, and why are they interested? Those documents are revealed. But anything else we want to do, we got a hunch. Hey, we heard from Lockheed Martin. They talked to somebody and they want to hear from you. We're not sending them your quad chart. We're not sending them in your poster board or anything without your permission. We won't even go to a newspaper and talk about you except for within the conference itself, what we can reveal. So we want you to understand your first step is a safe step. And I've said this over and over. We may not help you, but we will not hurt you. Okay, Bill?
Well, I just want to thank you all. I think it's been really interesting going through this and checking this out. Be careful with your IP. I would just add one comment about there is a difference between U.S. and international patents. If you think your patent might have interest globally to you know, just be selling it to a larger company, be very careful. There's some very distinct rules, and get help. And there are other organizations and different places that are willing to help with this kind of stuff. So
if you decide today, I'm willing to go first step and I'm going to apply, and you're going, but once I apply, I'm stuck. You're now going to reveal everything to the DoD, even if later I find out I don't want to. No, that's not the case. We want you to apply today because we are, Bijo, Bill, this whole team, we're in the process of helping you commercialize your product. We do not need you to pitch in order for us to feel good or us to feel like we've been successful with the DoD. We need to understand who you are and what you have to offer. We'll still help reveal that with the DoD, even if you don't pitch. We have poster board people that never pitched and have moved forward in socializing and working with the DoD. So we don't need you to pitch for us to be successful. If you apply and through the process of the next few weeks, we as a group mutually decide this is probably not a safe place for you to pitch, we're going to say that. We're going to tell you, and we will still help socialize and commercialize, help you to commercialize. We don't need you to pitch today for this conference. Right. So that's the first step. The second thing we want to do is remind, with what Bijo said, we do have an IP deep dive coming. This was not our deep dive today. We wanted to help you understand, to get you involved, to get you to step up. Because with some people, you're not unusual if you're the first one, if you think you're the only one that's worried about your IP. We understand that, and so we accept that. We want to try to calm your nerves and help you understand that there are some steps you can take to move forward. But we do plan on having an IP deep dive on the 4th or the 11th. Both of those are open. And so we're working on getting the right person in here or the right team to come up. So today what we wanted to do is help you understand the steps coming up. We've got Tech Warrior Enterprise, to Bijo talking about your having our DoD be able to understand, to give you early advice. We've got Tech Warrior Enterprise talking next week about the virtual demo that we're having as part of our program this year. Then we've got SBIR real world examples. We've got another state person planning on bringing in some examples and talking to SBIR from a case study perspective. Air Force SBIR contracts, Kim Yoder, who is the director for the contracts. This year, that's about $1 billion. That's a lot of contracting. So she's going to be here to talk to us. She has agreed, so those of you that are sitting on the fence, we are planning on trying to get a top 12 chosen out of the conference. If that happens, she's agreed to meet with the top 12 and then give a limited amount of time to each one of those 12 if they want to talk to her individually. We have Sharp Hub. Those of you that were here last week, Sharp Hub is going to be presenting specifically on life sciences and medical support. That's on the 28th. IP deep dive, like we said, and then wrapping it up and bringing it all together on the 11th. Any other questions? Well, we've got, let's see, how many will be seeing the poster board? More than before. This is a virtual conference. More people will see it this year than before. I can't give an answer to that. I know in the past, we've had probably 150 to 200 people seeing your poster boards. We are planning that your poster board will be seen in a category per night. That's the plan. So if Medical Monday, then Medical Monday, those 15 or 20 poster boards and innovators, pictures, poster boards would all be in that session. That's the plan. I hope we caught all your questions. Let's see. I know we're over. I want to the application deadline is today. Good question. That deadline is for everyone that applies up through today will be considered for pitch. After today, we will reopen it up. It's our second round. We do this every year, not a surprise. Everyone that applies after today will be considered on a first come, first served basis. Once we fill up the pitch slots, you will be poster board only because it is a time limit. We have to do that. So if you wait until later, that's fine. Just understand you stand the risk of being a poster board only, which is not a problem. You just don't get that 20-minute private pitch with a DoD separately. That's your main difference. But that we will limit out at some point. Up to today, you will be considered for poster because we'll take that entire group and for pitch. Sorry, thank you. So up to today, those that apply will go to Bill as a cohort of innovation, and he will look at your TRL, your technical readiness level, and your match. We have a budget of 20% or below, what we call wild card. We see need, he sees need, but he doesn't have a specific capability that he matches it with. Over 20%, we limit out. The rest will be specific matches that we can see, and then your higher TRL. That will be who gets in with a pitch. After today, we'll match them as we go, as soon as they match up until we're full. Any other questions or comments from the team? Okay, I'm guessing our team wants to go eat.
No, thank you all.
Bijo, it has been a true pleasure. I am so glad you were able to join today. We weren't sure, so I'm glad I caught you. We've been busy out at the NASA Space Force event. A bunch of information. Hopefully we can reveal some more of that as we go forward in the weeks to come as well.
No problem. It's been fun, and thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate our Texas partners.
Sure.
Yeah,
Same
thanks
here.
for joining.
Okay, folks, I think that's it. Please, if you have more questions or comments, understand we're here. We're here for you. Daisha, thank you, and Vicki for supporting us and making this possible for us today.
No problem.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Daisha.
Yes.
All right, take care. Oh, and
Bye.
I need to remind you, sorry, if you're listening to this live, we will be sending you the PowerPoint and the survey to Daisha, help me.
Yeah.
She clicked, she may have clicked the wrong way. The survey response, what are we, satisfaction survey?
Satisfaction survey.
Yeah, thank you.
The PowerPoint, and eventually the live recording will be available as well.
Yeah, so so those of you that saw this or listened to this today, please pass the word out for others, because I've got several that were wanting to be here today, couldn't be, that want to listen to this. So yes, we will be posting that. You can always go to our Kansas SBDC. Oh, I guess I should pop that up. I'm sorry. Whoa. There we go. Our last slide, you've got the contact information for Vicki, Bill, and myself, and then our kansasSBDC.net/tech. At that location, Daisha and the marketing team will put the link to where you can see these videos. So yes, thank you. All right, so you'll be getting an email for the satisfaction survey and the PowerPoint. Thank you so much.
Bye.
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 How do I close it?